Let's bring in rugby analyst Dan Retief as we preview the Rugby World Cup final tomorrow at 9 p.m. Dan, good afternoon. Thank you for your time with us here on the SABC.
Yeah, it's a great pleasure. I think I'm as nervous as the rest of the nation.
Some of us are still struggling to breathe, Dan, but ahead of this match tomorrow, perhaps we could look at the squad selection for this game on both sides. What's coming to the fore advantageously for both sides?
Well, I think it's a game of many imponderables, so it's almost almost impossible to predict a victory. So first up, I think Rassie and Jock Nienaber have gone with a 7-1 bench split, which is a great risk. Only one scrum half on the bench in the whole team. Faf de Klerk, if he goes down early, that could be a problem. If one of the specialist centres, Krill or Dialendi, go down early, that could be a problem because there's only Billy Leroux to come off the bench, and you then might have to play Cheslin Colby at scrum half. It's one thing being able to play scrum half, but quite another being able to play scrum half in a World Cup final. So that's the one situation. There's the other factor that you've got to take into account is 4 English officials, 4 English referees, with Mr. Barnes as the main referee taking charge of the game. And he's been quite vocal that he is not happy with Rassie, that he doesn't like the things Rassie had done, that there was some hate posts against his family. And, that affected in the light of the Tom Curry incident. Any little thing that goes wrong will be seen as the referees against us. The next thing, I think, in Paris, there's predictions of rain. What effect will rain have in this Rugby World Cup? We've seen these head injury assessments go wrong, accidental high tackles. That could affect either team. There could be a head injury that takes a player off the field. So you have to worry about what that could do to the whole situation. And then for me, another very key point is that I seem to be seeing that the Springboks are fatigued. They definitely looked flat against England. They've had by far the hardest run. So by the time we play the All Blacks in this final, we will have played all the top sides in the world. And if we beat the All Blacks, we would then have beaten all the All Blacks, or all the top sides in the world, which is easily the hardest run that any team has ever had to the final. And I just hope it's not the case that the Springboks are struggling for fitness, but Rassie Erasmus, Jock Nienaber, they've put the cards on the table. What they've said is, we're coming for you in the forwards. We are going to be forward heavy. We're going to play a forward dominated game. They did it against the All Blacks at Twickenham in late August, and they set a record score against the All Blacks by doing that. So they're obviously confident that that tactic works, that they can dominate the All Black forwards, take the ball away from the All Black forwards, and then impose our authority. You asked me about the All Blacks. Now, extremely dangerous side. They've had an easy run, so they shouldn't be as tired as the Springboks. They seem to have found a way to play. They've got key players like Retallick and Geordie Barrett back in the side. And I think the one thing that you must take into account about the August game, where we set a record score, 35-7, but the All Blacks played a half of that game with just 14 men. And the man off the field was Geordie Barrett, who's a tight forward, who makes a lot of more difference when you lose a tight forward. The All Blacks have run into form. They have, I think, easily the most dangerous backline in the competition. Just fine players, Mahonga, Geordie Barrett, Savea, Bowden Barrett to run from the back, 2 really quick wings. And the one thing they do need is they need the ball. They need the ball so they can play on the front foot and they can play fast. So you're going to have 2 teams. You're going to have the Springboks trying to dominate in the forwards, trying to keep the ball away. The All Blacks trying to loosen up the game and move it around and see whether they can beat us with their pace. So to predict a result is going to be so difficult.
Where everyone's playing with the imaginary crystal ball at this point, Dan. I think also given that Will Jordan is needing one, we're trying to become a record setter at the World Cup. Does this make sure that, will New Zealand make sure that the ball's playing wide, or played wide rather? And given the role of Andre Pollard as well for the duration, how important is kicking going to be during the game?
Oh, yes, it will be. I think the player you mentioned has an exceptional hit rate. Jordan is just, he scores in every game, and he has now a chance to become the player to have scored the most tries in a Rugby World Cup tournament, and surpassed the like of Ryan Abana and the great John Olomo. So he's extremely dangerous. I think Talea on the other side is as dangerous. Then they got a player. They're Damien McKenzie. We've got Damien Willemse. Their Damien McKenzie is a wonderful jinker and stepper. And the way the All Blacks have played, I mean, they've set their stall. They're a running side. They like to move the ball. They're not a tight phase side, and they're extremely dangerous. They pass exceptionally well. They run switch lines. The one thing I think they're going to be looking at is the chip kick over the top of the Springboks rush defence. We saw a little bit of that. They're starting to use the chip kick into behind our forwards, which could be dangerous for us because we're obviously looking to batter them in the front. So I think you talk about the kicking game, and Pollard's choice is clear that we are going to have to kick the ball a lot. We're going to have to bring the ball back to the forwards. We're going to have to put the ball in front of the forwards. Because the one thing the Springboks don't want is for that possession to go in amongst the All Black backs, because they will run fast, they'll run with variety, they'll run with excitement, they'll run with imagination. That's the way the All Blacks play. And so it's going to be a fascinating game. It's going to be definitely, the broadsword against the rapier.
Dan, you've spoken about the role of rain that's predicted, perhaps the inclement weather, and whether that plays well into South Africa's style of play. But I wonder also if we could speak to the observations about the atmosphere around the World Cup, even the alleged racial comment against Mbonambi and what impact that has going in. The psychological advantage of South Africa, also obviously having beaten New Zealand pre-World Cup as well. How do all of these dynamics come into the fore?
Yeah, I think rain is important, and rain would play into our hands, because then it becomes more difficult to run the ball around. It becomes more difficult to handle the ball. And that was certainly an issue in the England game, where that both teams didn't play running rugby at all, because the rain was much heavier at Stade de France than it looked on TV. And if we give it another game like that, and that's a little bit awkward at the moment. They say light rain or heavy rain, depending where you look. So, but a lot of rain, a wet ball will suit us, because that tightens the ball up. You keep it amongst the forwards. And where our great advantage would come in then is with our bomb squad. We've learned to call it the bomb squad, and we've got all those forwards to come off the bench and just absolutely keep up the pressure, turn the tourniquet on the New Zealand and just hold them down and play for position and play away from our half. So we're not going to play adventurous rugby at all, although we might have one or two little tricks up our sleeve to catch the All Blacks. The All Blacks' aim is to loosen the ball up, to cause us to make mistakes, to leave the ball lying around and then hit us hard on the counter-attack. The atmosphere in the Stade de France will be exceptional. I have a feeling the sort of home people in the crowd, the French, will go with the All Blacks, because we're the country that knocked them out of their own World Cup. And there's a little bit of karma in that, because we felt that they'd nicked the World Cup from us that was awarded to us. It should have been in this country in 23, but France got it. So maybe there's a little bit of justice that we knocked them out. But that means that we won't be the best like side. And so whatever emotion in the stand might go against us. Although then again, we've got a big element of French Huguenots in our side. And so we will have some support there. The Stade de France has fabulous atmosphere. It's a huge stadium. It's modern. You can hear the noise everywhere. It really rises up. And all these things said about France being knocked out, about England and the racial incident and Bongi and Mbonambi, that was terribly sad. I was sorry that happened. From what I've seen about Bongi and Mbonambi, he's not that kind of a person. But I don't think it will disrupt the Springboks at all. I think they managed to seclude the team. They put them in a cocoon and took them away from that. And unfortunately, I felt the RFU, the English Rugby Union, behaved quite badly to make an accusation of racism, which they couldn't prove. And, you can only make accusations if you have absolute proof. But I don't think it will affect us. If anything, it will motivate us going into that game. If we have a problem that we have to really put the lid on, is that we have been running a little bit hot with referees. And Bongi is a bit of a culprit. He had a run-in with Wayne Barnes the last time we played France, not in the World Cup, before the World Cup. in Paris. There was a problem with Bongi and Wayne Barnes where he got a warning. The other player that we need to watch out for is Willie Leroux, our fullback, who's now coming off the bench. He tends to get involved with the referee. And I think the one thing we don't want to do is irritate the officials. So I trust that Jacques and Russie have said to them, guys, just put a tape on your mouth. Don't get involved with the officials. The same with the All Blacks. You know, they're very disciplined. They're unlikely to have the hassles that England did with the officials, who took on the officials all the time, which was an unpleasant factor. But you know what we have? We have the greatest rugby rivalry in the world. It's a rivalry between us and the All Blacks that has come from far away, from the First World War, where we first met on the battlefields of France, and we started playing rugby against each other. So there's great respect. There's also a great rivalry, and both teams really want to beat each other. But deep down, there's this sort of brotherhood of rugby that we seem to be linked to the New Zealand. So I just can't wait for it. It's going to be one of the most fascinating finals. Of course, we make the point that we've never lost to New Zealand in a final. There was the 95 final, which we won with a drop goal. We've won 3, they've won 3. The winner tomorrow night is the first team to win 4. It's a chance for the Springboks to retain the cup. So there's just all these things in play. And then one thing that you mustn't forget is, what about a draw? We might have extra time. Now that's happened twice before, and in extra time we won thanks to Joel Stransky's drop goal, and in England in 2003 won thanks to Johnny Wilkinson's drop goal. So there's another little factor. Don't forget the drop goal.